No, I'm telling you, Ant Mom, water and vinegar is gonna be the next big ant thing. I'll be the richest ant in the colony. No, I already told you, Ant Mom, it's not weird that I specify that I'm talking to and about ants, even though it's implied. What? This from before? Yeah, as long as you leave after we're done, okay? Bye, Aunt Mom. Tell Aunt Dad I said hi. Let's see here. I'm not gonna recap what we went over last time, so if you forgot or didn't see it, then too bad there's no way to watch part 1 since this is real life. Oh well. Chapter 4. No items, Fox only, final destination. Chapter 4 beginning makes it so new quests are available. One of them tasks Team Snakemouth with cooling another bug down. To complete it during this chapter, I can use a shell ointment I bought from Metal Island, which introduces a near insurmountable challenge. Bad dialogue options. I'm sorry I couldn't get you an umbrella yet, but I really need to complete this quest. If you complete it with an umbrella you get in a later chapter, she'll award you with a reflection medal. But if you complete the quest with shell ointment as early as chapter 4 starting, or with magic ice that can only be obtained later in chapter 4, the reflection medal will still be obtainable by buying it at the traveling caravan. Here, Kabu learns to dig, which gets every bug out of the cell and is needed to unearth important items like crystal berries and move under cracks to get the berserker medal. There's also a bond berry just lying around. By returning Tangerine's stolen horn, he breaks a rock that drops Mightier Pebble. This amazing medal costs 3 MP to give Kabu the Boulder Toss skill, which for 4 TP deals 4 damage to Kabu without action commands. With everything we can obtain right now, we're as ready as we can be for the toughest fight so far, Astotheles. I mentioned last time that a unique property of this fight is that he prevents Team Snakemouth from using any items. That is absolutely devastating, since so far items have carried us through every fight. With more medals acquired throughout the game, are the ones we have right now enough to overcome this enemy? His attacks consist of a single slice of his sword for 6 damage, 2 pokes for 8 damage total, and after being attacked he has a chance to put his guard up at the start of the player's turn. Once he reaches 37 health, he will have 2 actions every turn, and can follow up his strong attack with weak strikes. This may sound unimpressive, but multi-strike attacks on hardest mode dealing 2 more damage each hit than they would otherwise, and the whole no items thing is going to make this fight extremely difficult. Fortunately, the game gives us enough medals for the do-nothing build to be functional, even though we don't have 2 copies of Reflect or Prayer yet. When Kabu does nothing, he'll heal 2 health, gain 1 defense until the end of the opponent's next turn, and recover 2 TP. Also, in case you're not aware, these medals only work once per turn, so turn relaying won't let me use their effects twice. Another important medal for this fight is TP Core. This will heal 2 TP every 2 turns, which makes it so we basically get 3 TP every turn. Even though really we're getting 2 on the first turn and 4 on the next as long as Kabu does nothing every turn, which he absolutely will be doing. You're still my favorite bug, Kabu. The TP gain from my medals is going to be key to winning this battle, as even with the healing and defense Kabu gets from doing nothing, he'll still be taking a lot of damage from Astotheles, and in an extremely long fight like this one, the other bugs are bound to get hit eventually, so I need to plan for that as well. I can only do 1 damage at a time with the attack boost on the bug in front without using skills that cost TP due to the 1 extra armor every enemy will have from chapter 4 onwards thanks to hardest mode. With all of my TP regeneration, I can continuously heal the team with V's sharing stash. I do this until my next attack will set Astotheles to 37 health, since that's the threshold for his next phase where he'll get a bonus attack each turn. Before moving forward, I make sure all my bugs have a high amount of health and TP until it's time to progress the fight. The extra action Astotheles gets is not good for me, since I won't be able to keep up with the TP required to heal my bugs. I tried a couple of other medals to see how they work without action commands, and it turns out Berserker is useless. But Lifestealer has the interesting property of still healing 1 health even when the equipped bug's attack deals 0 damage. That is actually huge. If not for this one little property, I don't think this fight would be realistically possible. The luck you would need would just be too insane for how long this fight is. I tried so many other things that ultimately wouldn't work due to costing too much TP to sustain, but I'm not going to mention all of them since they all boil down to the same problem and it just wastes time. The main takeaway from them is that I need to find a way to use up at most 3 TP each turn, while at least 2 bugs consistently survive and the 3rd gets back up with Miracle Matter. Many hours later, a health level up and 1 medal point level up, and I'm finally ready for the fight. Once again, before Astotheles reaches his extra attack threshold, I heal my team's health and TP. I use some of my extra TP to taunt a couple times, which just speeds things up a bit. That's helpful since my strategy isn't a guaranteed win, and the longer a fight goes on, the less and less likely I am to win. I always do nothing with Kabu for the heal and defense buff. Leaf attacks whenever he gets the chance, but his most important role is to put Bubble Shield Light on himself or Kabu depending on the bug that needs it the most. That's where V equipped with Miracle Matter comes into play. Whenever she's alive, she will always turn Relay to Leaf so he can perform both actions. Back support is another important medal for the fight. I always move Leaf or Kabu to the back. Who takes this position is the one without the bubble shield on them. This way, if Astotheles attacks them, it's much less devastating and I'll almost always be able to recover. V reviving is already needed for her turn relay, but it also serves as a way for the team to tank an attack, since an Astotheles hit on a 2 health team member is practically a wasted action for him. Not quite completely wasted, because it does force Leaf to forego healing with his lifesteal so he can shield, but with proper positioning and shielding, the bug with the lowest health can usually be shielded without risking losing if the bug in the back gets hit with both actions. Astotheles absolutely loves to put his guard up, and when it's up I can't deal any damage to him. Seriously, I don't know the odds of it, but he was doing it more often than not, and I couldn't put it down with the flipping move without the action command since I didn't have TP for Heavy Strike. But keep up the shields and do nothing as many times as it takes, and after 1 hour and 6 minutes of gameplay where human error becomes a terrifying eventuality, Astotheles finally went down. As if the game's giving me a break after that terribly difficult fight, I take out a few more mini-bosses easily with access to items again. The only useful medals from them for the purposes of this playthrough being Hard Charge from the Dune Scorpion. I also complete the newly opened quest for a second copy of the Freeze Resistance medal, and pick up the Frostbite medal, which will be useful later. It reflects physical attacks while frozen, and although you get it right before an ice-themed boss, its attacks are magical, so it's useless here. That's unfortunate, but it's far from the biggest problem. Without action commands, I obviously can't block like I've been adhering to this entire playthrough. That usually results in me taking 1 or 2 extra damage than you would with a block or super block respectively. However, the Watcher has a move that doesn't stop damaging until the player mashes A enough, which means if he uses that attack, the bug that's targeted will be killed in 1 action no matter how much health they had before. As if that wasn't bad enough, it also heals the Watcher for each tick of damage. So if it's used on a bug with a lot of health, I basically can't come back from that and have to restart the fight. One last fun interaction is that attacks like this will infinitely continue if I shield the targeted bug, since I can't mash A to stop it, and the shield blocks its damage indefinitely. This seems like a funny interaction at first, until you realize it means I risk soft locking the game anytime I shield while the Watcher's in sand mode. But that's just one of its attacks. Which ones it uses change based on the mode the Watcher is currently in, which alternate between sand mode and ice mode every 2 turns, with the Watcher always starting the fight in sand mode. While in this form, it can attack random allies with 2 to 3 sparks that deal 4 damage each and don't numb despite their appearance. This is the form it can use the life drain attack and will stay underground after using it until an attack forces it out. In ice form, it can use Leaf's Frigid Coffin for 5 damage, or Icefall the entire party for 7 damage, which both freeze on a failed block. The Watcher has several support moves that it can use before its turn without using an action. These include an attack or defense boost by 1 for 1 turn, healing for 6 health once per combat, and a wall of ice or sand depending on the mode. The Watcher gets an extra action each turn once its health is at or below 40. My best chance of winning this fight is to finish it as fast as possible. I wanted the medal from the Tidal Worm for more damage, but that wasn't happening yet. My single last attack medal will have to do. I start the fight with V at 8 health, so once she uses hard charge, her health will be low enough for last attacks plus 1 attack. I taunt and shield Kabu, who started the fight with 16 health, despite the downside of instantly losing if he's targeted by the health drain attack, since the shock balls deal 5 damage each with deep taunt, which lowers the Watcher's defense by 1, but raises attack by 1 while taunted. On my next turn, Leaf gives V Spicy Candy, which increases her attack by 1, and poisons her thanks to weak stomach for a poison attacker, which you will never guess what that medal does, and I'm not going to say. This makes V's Hurricane Toss deal 17 damage total, and I still have enough TP to deal another 11 without charges. After that, I use a Queen's Dinner to fully heal the team's health and TP. At this point, the Watcher is switched to its Ice mode. Its Frigid Coffin attack always freezes unless the target has a freeze resistance medal. On this attempt, Kabu and V both had 1 for a 50% chance to dodge a freeze each. Getting frozen isn't too big of a deal since Queen's Dinner removing the status effect is actually good here, but obviously not being locked into using an action and item to unfreeze is helpful here. The Watcher always uses Icefall on its next turn, so Leaf can protect the team with Bubble Shield. I use another Spicy Candy triple charged Hurricane Toss for 15 damage and get a lucky 30% chance, turned 45% chance numb with Status Booster, which means the Watcher can't screw up my team with a Life Drain attack, 6 health heal, or lucky Shock Balls. This also lowers his health to the point that I can use Hard Charge on V, relay back to her for another 15 damage Hurricane Toss, and use an Abomination for a perfect lethal where Leaf is poetically the only bug left standing with 4 health. Chapter 5, Cold Venom. But not that, something like that. I'll change it later. With my 13 crystal berries, I have just enough to buy Poison Touch, Poison Attacker, and Defense Exchange. One of the new quests has Team Snakemouth fighting 3 malfunctioning robots who have 5 health and question mark defense. This makes all attacks deal 1 damage no matter how powerful, and that includes missing the action command on basic attacks. The reward is a Power Exchange medal, which will be very useful later. It functions as an opposite to Defense Exchange, which increases defense by 1 and decreases attack by 1. The Wild Swamplands is home to a few poison medals because we didn't have enough of those already. One makes it so you don't heal from poison over time. The next one is obtained after beating the Beast. The Beast has a Poison Breath attack which deals 5 damage to all bugs and poisons them for 1 turn. An attack with its horns for 9 damage. It can hide underground and bite with a life-stealing 8 damage attack. It can spend a turn charging, followed by a charge forward to attack the entire party for... blah blah blah. This fight is so easy, I feel like I'm wasting our time explaining this. I'm convinced the frostbite medal was made solely for this boss fight because this is the only one it's useful against for the story after you obtain it, but oh boy is it good. All of the boss's attacks are physical, so if I bring a bag full of healing items that inflict freeze to the bug that eats them, all the boss's attacks will damage it instead. This gets even crazier when you combine frostbite with defense lowering badges that make it so the extra damage you would normally take gets converted into bonus reflected damage while you still get the regular benefit of the badge. As if all this wasn't good enough, V can hurricane toss underground enemies, so the beast can't even hide. Then again, maybe the frostbite medal wasn't made for this boss because it has a funny interaction with the scripted event. Frostbite can reflect an attack that deals 99 damage to all bugs that the beast will use once its health is gated and can't go below 10. That is supposed to take out every bug except Kabu, who has some beef with the beast. Maybe Kabu just really likes Leaf, who knows? Frostbiting this attack still damages the boss as if it were any other, so one more attack will easily finish him. This unlocks the reverse toxin medal, which makes poison heal instead of damage the equipped bug at the start of my turn, at the cost of 1 defense. I can also get a second copy of reflection for +2 defense on turns the holder does nothing. A joke boss and some more story stuff later, and Chapter 5 is complete. Chapter 6. Exodia. Obliterate! Chapter 6 starting allows you to buy a Super Pepper, which increases the attack of one bug permanently without requiring metal points or anything like that. It can be extracted to change which bug it's on later in the game, but there's only one bug I attack with, so I just use it on V right away. While finishing some new quests, I unlock Leaf's Ice Rain. Not because I can use it, obviously, but for overworld stuff. With more crystal berries, I can officially buy the remaining potentially useful black market medals in the form of front support and HP+. The other ones have to do with super blocking, and there's one that makes the game say every attack was unbelievable even if you miss the action command. I prefer when the game insults me, thank you very much. If you know about broken metal builds in this game, then you probably know what strategy I'll start relying on soon for the harder bosses of the game. But don't worry, it won't always work, so there's still a lot to talk about. In the meantime, I was testing out other infinite sustain builds and found one that I personally have never seen anyone use or talk about, and it even works on hardest modes, so you can imagine how much better it would be on the regular difficulties with action commands. It's pretty simple, just equip every defense increasing medal on one bug. In this case, Kabu has defense exchange, back support, 2 reflect medals, 2 poison defenders, eternal venom so the poison never fades, reverse toxin, and prayer. This makes it so he takes only a single point of damage to pretty much any attack used on him against most enemies as long as you poison him with an item or are hit with a poison attack. The 1 damage Kabu takes is not because his defense isn't high enough to completely cancel out stronger attacks, it's actually because of a mechanic in the game where if you don't guard, you always take at least 1 damage no matter how weak or strong the attack is. But of course, doing nothing but doing nothing isn't a win condition by itself, which is why the strategy also needs Miracle Matter to revive a fallen bug, usually V, to attack before failing again. At this level, with only 32 metal points, I can't afford to equip any TP recovering or damage increasing medals, so the battle would take forever with me only dealing 1 damage every 3 turns since the boss has 104 health and all, so I'll come back later. But it's cool to see that this fight is doable as early as Chapter 5 if you wanted to. Oh, and the reason this strategy is even needed for the Seedling King is that he constantly summons add-ons, so V's single target damage isn't good enough. It is good enough for the Primal Weevil with the aid of items, however. 2 numb resistance medals on V basically removes the RNG from this fight, and Royal Decree is nice, I guess. After that, Paton's stat changing service is unlocked, allowing me to change my level up bonuses and which bug my permanent stat increase berries go on. This means there's no reason to hold on to my heart berries, so I increase the maximum health of every bug by 1. In order to progress, we have to go to the Colosseum and beat 3 fights with no time in between each one to heal or get new items. I love fights like this, but unfortunately there's not much to talk about here. Multiple Queen's Dinners provide me more than enough healing to easily beat each combat. You don't even have to level up in between the second and final fight for the free full heal level ups give, or any fancy strategy like that. And by completing a newly opened quest, a second copy of HP Core is acquired, which is the final piece of Exodia Leaf, making most fights a complete joke. For the uninitiated, by using the Lifecast medal that can be picked up in Chapter 6 and 2 HP Core medals, Leaf can infinitely sustain himself. Lifecast has the effect of making skills that normally cost TP cost health to the equipped bug instead, which is broken, especially only costing 2 metal points, but also it makes skills cost 1 less for some reason. This makes Bubble Shield Light cost 2 health, so by Leaf casting it on himself, he blocks all damage on the enemy's turn at the small price of 2 HP. Hey, speaking of 2 HP, HP Core heals 2 health every other turn. By using both of them, the 2-turn wait for 4 health completely negates the price of 2 consecutive turns of self-casted Bubble Shield Lights. Combine this with Miracle Matter on V for a 9 metal point combo that easily beats almost every fight in the game. Like, I don't know man, why is this a thing? You can change up how you heal too, as long as it's sustainable, so Reverse Toxin with Eternal Venom also works. There will still be some problem fights, but here's a quick list of bosses Exodia Leaf works on. Peacock Spider, which fun fact about this fight is that Poison Touch spreads poison from physical attacks even if you're shielded. Callie, Seedling King, Tidal Worm, False Monarch, Riz, Zalmoth, Ultimax Tank, Wasp King, and Everlasting... Uh-oh. Looks like the final boss won't be a complete pushover then. Well, he still mostly is, to be honest. Yeah, by the way, it's Chapter 7 now. I couldn't really think of a good transition since I was just listing bosses, so, this is what you get. Oh, I can read the chapter name if you want. Chapter 7, Iron Seeds and Irony. It's pretty funny, you won't get it until later though. Huh? Oh, right, where was I? The Everlasting King can only use his Life Drain attack while he's on the ground, so if I don't attack him to keep him in the air, there's not much he can do, so I'm not going to list his attacks. I will admit to this making me think I had to use a Status Mirror medal on my bug with Miracle Matter to damage the Everlasting King only with fire, which would take forever since it takes 2 turns to revive, and when I do he usually won't use the fire attack, or the artifacts would take out V instead. Also, the Everlasting King fully heals twice in this fight, so yeah, that would be a nightmare. A much faster way to do this is build Do Nothing Kabu with Status Mirror and an Iron Seed, Exodia Leaf, and V dies 1,000,000 times V. After getting 3 charges from Favorite One on Leaf, V uses Hurricane Toss, which knocks down the boss, but by using a second one from Kabu's turn relay, V can toss the Everlasting King right back up. I use Queen's Dinners for the health to keep Kabu alive and to keep my TP high enough to double Hurricane Toss again. The only artifact that poses any threat is the Ancient Tablet, which bubble shields the Everlasting King and takes 3 hits to destroy, but that only really slows the fight down. I also brought some reviving items in case Kabu fainted or I made a mistake, which, like the Astotheles fight, took so long that a mistake was pretty much inevitable. Like here, where I attacked with Leaf, since I was planning on relaying V's action to use Leaf's Bubble Shield Light on the same turn, due to not wanting to waste her 3 charges on the Ancient Tablet. For whatever reason, I thought I had an action remaining when I did nothing with Kabu, and Leaf took some heavy hits in front. Whoops. But even with the Everlasting King's 2 full heals on hardest mode, my infinite sustain build is enough to win. And no, the irony of using an infinite sustain build against the Everlasting King isn't lost on me. And with that, the 3 bugs saved us from that fate that I'm not going to go more into detail of, just in case you guys want to play this game. It's been real, but get out of my house. What? No, I know there's a post-game, but fine. To start, for beating the Everlasting King, the team's rewarded with another Miracle Matter medal. By equipping both on one bug, it lowers the number of turns until the bug revives to 1, which is great here, since to 100% this game, there are multiple fights where enemies just keep calling for backup, so it takes forever with my only viable attack being Hurricane Toss as always. The fight against the flies took me 27 minutes. The Everlasting King took 57 minutes on the winning attempt, just for reference. After helping Team Maki with a similar fight, we're rewarded with a Spicy Berry, Iron Seed, and the option to fight the newly formed trio. With 2 Miracle Matters, I put one on Kabu and one on V, so Kabu can do nothing without needing items to revive him. And unfortunately, Exodia Leaf and any other character with Miracle Matter is enough to beat this boss fight too. Same goes for Team Slacker. I wasn't satisfied with these fights being that easy, so I wanted to see if my maximum defense build would also work here, which is just me putting every defensive medal on Kabu again and using a poison cake on the first turn. I also moved all my level up bonuses to medal points now that I'm the highest level in the game and have medals to make up for the health decrease. The funny thing about this build is that after Kabu is poisoned on the first turn, I can just do nothing for most of the fight and still win as long as I had someone attack every so often. Since Yin can heal health and the poison Kabu inflicts with Poison Touch, which is hilarious to me and an acceptable amount of cheese since this isn't as well known as far as I'm aware, and still works on hardest mode where Team Maki has +3 attack. I still use Miracle Matter V to speed things up, but still. Team Slacker fares better against Uncle Iron Seed since you still take at least 1 damage no matter what attack is used against you without guarding, and Delilah has an attack that hits so many times. Like so many times. She can also freeze, which could put me in an unwinnable position. I could have built more optimally with status resistances and brought items other than poison cakes, but I thought the Team Slacker would use clear bombs since it removes their poison in addition to mine, but they never did. I got through the fight first try, but just barely, and would have lost with slightly worse luck. Epilogue 2, Bug Boogaloo. As many players know, there's one last trial Team Snakemouth can take on. The Cave of Trials pits them against 50 combats back to back with 3 out of combat heals you can use along the way. Sustain from items and medals still work too. Each fight gets progressively harder as more late game enemies appear and enemies show up in stronger formations. That's not even the bad part. If I truly want to be an epic gamer, I need to bring along 4 Tangy Berries or have 1 Tangy Berry in my 4th item slot after finishing the 50th fight against 2 Deadlander Gammas. This makes it so directly after that combat, I'll have 1 chance to fight Tangy Bug. Tangy Bug has 114 health, 5 armor, attacks twice every turn, and has pretty much every move in the game. One of these moves, of course, is a life draining attack that can be used while he's on the ground, or in the air, which immediately makes Exodia Leaf an unviable strategy. Exodia Kabu is off the table as well, since Tangy Bug's life drain attack would heal him too much, and repoisoning Kabu after reviving him would take too many items to sustain. I wouldn't have nearly enough damage to beat him either, and Leaf and V not having medals make them faint to almost every attack. The second worst attack Tangy Bug can use would have to be his Ice Breath, since it hits my entire team and freezes them, which sets the following turns up for failure since I need to waste actions on items to revive my team or heal the alive bugs, which just gives more time for Tangy Bug to find that winning combination of moves. If I can find a strategy to recover from situations I'm in after these 2 attacks are used consecutively, the fight should be realistically possible. After my 2 main strategies were taken away from me, I tried an all-out attacking build which just doesn't work since I'm constantly forced to play defensively with bugs continually fainting. So it was time to do the unthinkable. Distribute medals equally throughout the entire team. To do this properly, I needed to test a couple things first. I'm not sure if this is common knowledge, but it's important, so I'm gonna say it anyway. Just try and stop me. No matter how high a bug's maximum health is, low health is defined as being at or below 4 HP. This is extremely important because low health activates the effects of last attack, which I've been using for most of the book, but also a lesser used but extremely powerful last stand medal, which increases the defense of a low health bug by 2. But before getting back to Tangy Bug, I have to mention the fights prior to him. Before, when my build had Exodia Leaf and a mostly do-nothing Kabu, the 50 fights were time-consuming, yeah, but they were easy. As my build shifts into one that's fit for Tangy Bug, it's becoming worse for the ones preceding him. And keep in mind that every time I attempt Tangy Bug, I have to make my way through 50 long fights, easy or otherwise. Most of the fights are still easy, with Kabu still using a majority of the do-nothing medals and 2 iron seeds, so the ones I'm going to mention are the only actual ones that threaten more than just my time. Any fight with the bandit risks them stealing an item, which can ruin the Tangy Bug fight by stealing or misplacing a Tangy Berry. There's a battle with 2 Maid's Fee, and an Anisha, 3 of the 4 having attacks that numb on a failed block to put the team in losing positions. A haunted cloth, cause stealing health is the coolest thing since YouTubers showing their subscriber watch time, and I would never do either. And the Deadlanders, especially the final fight against the Deadlander Deltas that can easily mess my team up if they hit the wrong team member at the right time. Losing there does not feel good. Secure Pouch makes it so items cannot be stolen for an easy 1 medal point fix. Shock Trooper is another obvious one, needed mostly for the fight against the 3 paralyzing opponents, but it also helps a lot with the Deadlander Alphas for a 2 MP fix. Haunted Cloths can be dealt with by making sure you always have more than 1 bug alive at all times, which makes Pep Talk extremely good. I also have magic seeds if I need them due to a fainted Kabu here, but I'll need a majority of them for Tangy Bug, so I still have to be careful. Lastly, the Deadlander Deltas aren't a threat if Kabu has 2 sleep resistance medals for another 2 MP fix. I'm not using Heavy Sleeper because I want to come out of this fight with around 10 health on Kabu, exactly 4 on Leaf, and 4 or less on V. Kabu's health is the toughest one to manipulate in the Tangy Bug fight, and he'll be the one in the front that tanks the most damage. This is mostly due to not knowing which attacks out of the many possible ones are going to be used. Because of this, his metal build has a lot of health regen with 2 HP cores and 1 prayer, but also a lot of ways to lose health with Favorite One and Life Cast. I want him to stay healthy enough to survive Tangy Bug's attacks, but not too healthy, so once he's inevitably drained of all his health, I can still win. Leaf's build equips 2 last stands for plus 4 defense when at or below 4 health. Tardigrade shield so he only takes 1 damage to each attack and can't be frozen since Kabu has both freeze resistances equipped to prepare for the frost breath attack. Status relay to give V all the charges Leaf's not using. Prayer instead of HP core so I can control when and how much health is healed so the Leaf can stay at or below 4 health, since anything above that means he faints to almost any attack. V has 2 last attacks, 2 power exchanges, and 2 miracle matters, so she can do as much damage as she needs to do, and can disregard defensive medals entirely, since she just survives after 1 turn anyway. The team recovers TP through TP core and Kabu's do nothing build, including 2 meditations. Spy Specs is there just because he can't spot Tangy Bug. The items I bring are also important. I brought 4 Tangy Berries just so I couldn't mess up the order by mistake. The TP they restore is actually useful as well. 1 Abomination in case Tangy Bug is in range to lose to it while one of my bugs is healthy enough to tank it, and every other slot is used for magic seeds, though a couple being replaced by Miracle Shakes would almost certainly be more optimal. The actual fight consists of me deciding whether or not to use an action reviving a fallen ally, or doing nothing until V gets enough charges. This is where having 2 or 3 Miracle Shakes would help. I was just worried about healing Kabu at the same time as reviving others, but ended up in worse situations by only having magic seeds. Kabu's pep talk came in very handy here. It was almost always better for him to lose 4 health to revive someone else with that same amount lost, so he can stay low and I wouldn't have to worry about TP as much, so life cast was a huge factor in my victory, but also had its times where it did put me in a tough situation. The last high threat move Tangybug can use is Taunt, which makes the taunted bug unable to use items, so obviously that's bad. Still, with this metal distribution and item build, every time I was put in a situation I could lose if Tangybug used the right attacks, I was able to get out of it and deal damage quick enough before my luck ran out. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, consider leaving a like and subscribing if unique and difficult challenges are things you're into. That stuff also helps me a lot more than you might think. I guess the most comparable challenge on my channel to this one is Pokemon without moves, so you might want to check those out. They're my favorite challenges on the channel to date, though this one was a lot of fun too.